Being a dad is hard. It's high stakes. It takes a toll on our self-worth, mental health, and can be lonely. But why would we ever want to do something so important in isolation? Legacy Makers, a conversation for dads, is quite simply two normal dads having conversations about, you guessed it, being a dad. The highs, the lows, and the learnings along the way. We are four dads. We want to remedy the deficiency we see in community for dads, and we want to ruthlessly encourage dads on their journey to build lasting legacy for the faces they love the most.
All right, Eric, we both have sons, and then I have a daughter, and you have $2. Two sons, $2.
Yep.
I saw a post the other day that just got me thinking about how do we raise kids differently. So let's talk. I want us to talk for a little bit today about what it looks like to raise sons. Let me read this post. I'm not going to read. There's 34 things to teach your son. I won't read all of them.
34?
34.
Wow.
Some I'm a little old school, but I'm curious your thoughts on some of these. Number 1, never shake a man's hand sitting down. A little bit controversial. Number 2, don't enter a pool by the stairs.
Whew, so that's a good one.
Got to jump in. In a negotiation, never make the first offer. Let's see. Never be afraid to ask out the best-looking girl in the room.
I like that.
Okay, we're going to have to, I mean, these are some good ones you have to, you marry the girl, you marry her family.
Oh, someone should have told me that.
There you go. Eat lunch with the new kid. Give credit, take the blame. And some of these, by the way, I think apply to our daughters as well. Write down your dreams. Stand up to bullies. Protect those who are bullies. Yeah, in all things, lead by example, not explanation. Vulnerability is okay. Let's just talk for a minute about the fact that for our sons, what are the things that are different than daughters that we need to be teaching them? How do we parent them differently? What are the things we want them to know? And I'm also curious, like, are there things that you and I are doing that maybe we shouldn't be doing when it comes to our sons? Like, are there things that we're teaching them because it's what our dads taught us, but maybe aren't the right things to be teaching?
It's interesting. I haven't really pondered the differences. I do think there are differences, but like, I do think for the most part, there's like 80% that's very similar. For my boys, I do harp on them a lot on some of the traditional, whether it's right or wrong. For me, it's important. Like the traditional,
like gentleman stuff.
Exactly.
Opening a door.
Obviously, like you said, shaking hands, look someone in the eyes. We'll be at like the office. I took him to the office, and the other day, and the little things like the elevator door opens and they're rushing up, let people in, or if there's a lady there, or even not even a lady, just everyone, please go in first. Like, I think it's really important. I think it's important for them. Camden is going through, he'll go through cotillion. It's a 3 kind of, it's a week for every summer starting next summer. So he'll do that. Like, I just think that's really important. And I haven't really, the girls are a little younger, but I haven't really thought about that with them. But that's one that really like sticks out to me in terms of some of the differences with them. But is there something? What about you?
Well, I saw this line that our sons are growing up in a culture that confuses strength with dominance.
Yeah,
and I do think there is something for kids, and again, mine are definitely younger on this spectrum, but like that we want them to be strong, that we want them to take responsibility, that we want them to take ownership of a situation. But that doesn't mean that they need to be taking responsibility, taking ownership doesn't mean downplaying or diminishing other people. I think about in particular with George, who's our oldest, like the way that he treats, I do challenge him to treat girls differently than he treats guys.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's good or bad, but he's out there wrestling or pushing around another boy. I'm okay with that. I want him to treat a girl differently than that.
Yeah, I do think that's the same. Like my boys, especially with their sisters, right? Like, my boys are always wrestling and trying to make sure that there's a different approach, right, with their sisters. So that feels that way too. One of the things that I've been thinking about is like this whole cultural like toxic masculinity thing, that there's definitely elements of that are accurate, but I also think that I want to make sure my boys know that they're made a certain way, and it's okay. There's some of the things that I think society, and there's always a fine line, but like strength, just the way that they're going about thinking about, sports or other, like it's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with them. I think that there has been a pull recently that there's there's the way that boys are brought up is causing some issue in society. And certainly there's some truth to that, but I get a little anxious about like what the pressure is going to be on them coming up as like feeling like there's something wrong for who they are.
Yeah.
And that's reality. I think I've got to make sure that they know that there is nothing wrong with who they are, but they need to behave in a certain way. Yeah. So.
Okay. I want to hit 3 areas in this. I want to talk about identity for guys. Where do they find their identity? How do we do it? I want to talk about integrity. I think that's a piece that, and again, applies just as much to girls. But I think the way that we approach it with sons, the outcome should be the same, but maybe the approach is different. And then I think about the intentionality of our relationships with our sons. So let's go identity first. One of the things that I want to speak into my sons is that their identity is not based solely on their performance. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean I don't want them to perform in a classroom, on a sports field, in whatever arena they're in, but their identity isn't based on that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times as men, we think that who we are is based on how we performed that day. And I think it's easy to put that on my son. Like, oh, you didn't succeed at this. You failed at this.
Yeah. I'm glad that you, especially with George's age at 6, right? Like you having awareness of that right now is so vital. It took me a few more years with Cam and we were like that with Benny. We're super intentional on, it's not the what, right? But it's the how, right? So the what would be, you struck out 3 times, or you made these errors, or you missed all these shots. Like when I think about sports as an example, mm-hmm. It's easy to kind of fall into like that's what you want to talk about. You want to correct. And then, if they do great, it's like, all great. The whats were good. You have to, as dads, I think, talk about the how, like how you did it. And that might be preparation. That might be focus. That might be effort. So that is a great awareness that you're trying to not be performance based, because if you can start very early, like it's the hows more than the whats.
Let's talk about identity specifically related to being in our family. I feel like this is something you do well, and we haven't talked about it in maybe a year on the podcast. You talk about things we do in the Blumenthal family. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm following your lead a little bit on that. I'm sitting right here. You're flexing over here. You got this tattoo. That says what?
Matt Carrier.
And don't you talk about this in your family? Like in our family, this is part of our identity.
Yeah. I mean,
do this.
Yeah. So a couple things. Yes. And I think that you just do whatever is natural. And I think we've talked about not overcomplicating it. Like it doesn't have to be some big thing. It just could be kindness or love or whatever, showing up for people. But I try to connect. For us, faith is really important. And the Matt Carrier story in the New Testament is about 4 friends that went to one of their friends who was paralyzed and couldn't move, and put him on a mat and carried him across town, and then couldn't get where Jesus was to try to get him healed, and couldn't get in. So they climbed the roof and lowered him down. And this whole story was around the man was healed based on the friend's effort and faith. And so we talk about that. We want to be Matt Carriers, and what does that mean? And so it's a good teaching moment for me to, hey, you were a Matt Carrier, so this happened, you did this, I'm really proud of you. Or on the inverse, did you have an opportunity where you could have been and you missed that opportunity? Like I saw this. So I think it just helps connect.
Which I think for boys in particular, balancing the strength with looking out for the lowest and the least.
Yes.
And I think that's a big identity piece. So number one, identity. Two, integrity. Like, I think we live in a world where integrity is something that both boys and girls should absolutely do, but it is, for guys, sometimes it is easy to not be rewarded for that piece. It's you get rewarded based on outcomes, not always on just doing the right thing. Yeah. How else do you reinforce that?
Well, I think that's one where you have to model. I mean, the hard thing about integrity is it's gone in an instant.
Yeah.
Like as you get to, as a kid, no, but like when you're an adult, you're one bad decision away from a different life. Yeah, when it comes to your integrity as a man and woman, but I can't speak for me as I think about it. You could have a 20-year run of very consistent behavior and you're known for whatever, kindness, all the things. And as a person of integrity, one decision could erode the whole thing.
Yeah. There's a quote about like it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. And if you think about that, you'll do things differently.
I mean, so for me, what comes to my mind with my boys is we talk a lot about choices, and that the choice that they're making right now may not seem like it's significant, but bad choices then compound. And that ultimately, from an integrity perspective, is going to impact. So yes, got it. You hit your brother. You don't think it's a big deal, but here's why it is a big deal. Because you say the thing, you call him a name, you hit him, it becomes easier to do that the next time. And then your default reaction is actually now anger. And then as that the compound. So again, it's sometimes we think our kids aren't ready for conversations like that, but they are. They need to understand that there's a compounding issue that could be occurring.
I think that the compounding piece is key. There's a book that's called There's No Such Thing as Business Ethics. And the premise was there's not business ethics, there's just ethics. There's like doing what's right. Yeah. And sometimes we think, this is part of cultivating at a younger age. Right is right and wrong is wrong. But I think specifically for sons, it's being able to say like, hey, you're going to have opportunities to cut corners or to cheat. And like in our house, we don't do that.
Yep.
This is not part of it.
Yep.
I want us to anchor a little bit on the intentionality of the relationship with us and our sons in particular. I saw this that said rituals create rhythms and rhythms build relationships. What rituals are you putting in place? We haven't ever talked about this, but I just watch it on this. I see like, I think you do different things with different ones. Somebody likes hot chocolate, maybe, and somebody else more ice cream or something. I don't know, but
yeah, I think finding. I love that. I've never heard that quote. I think that's really good. Yeah, with the boys, it's always it's focus time every month, and it's not about tentpole moments. It could sometimes the focus time could be a trip to Home Depot, but like to your point with Cam, oftentimes it's ice cream. With Benny, it's morning hot chocolate. But trying to create and carve out time where they know that we're just going to have some time together is really important. So I think those are like more scheduled. When I'm home, I put them to bed, every night, and we do our prayers and we try to have a quick conversation.
When you're praying with them, are there certain things that this is going to sound really bad, so I'm going to say but you're praying to God, but are there some things that you're saying so that they hear you say that?
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, and so what are some examples of some of those
I mean, it's the most important thing that I say to them every time I'm praying, while I'm praying, but it's over them. Yeah. Is how make sure that, Camden knows how much you love him and his mom and dad love him and how important he is to this family and this world. Say it every time when we pray. Because I want my boys and my girls, but I want them to know they're loved, that their creator loves them and needs them. That's loves and needs is what I say. Like because I want them to know they're loved, that there's purpose in their life, and that they're a part of something, right? And so it's interesting because I've never really I didn't ever sit down and say, what am I? But like you asked, it's the first time I've articulated that, but I say that all the time when I pray. It's very interesting. But yeah, so like the monthly time with them, put them to bed. And then when I'm home, like in the mornings, like when I'm not traveling, I get them up and breakfast and school bus. And then, there's just time.
I want to know how you do this as they get older. Something I have noticed that I do different I naturally do different with my daughter than my oldest son, but I'm trying to change, is that for my daughter, it's much easier to I just go up and hug her, or just this like closeness. And I feel like for our sons, they need the physical touch as much, like hands on shoulders, big hug, and then speaking verbally to them. What you said, I have two things over and over. I love you and I'm proud of you.
Yes.
I love you and I'm proud of you. And it doesn't matter what you do. Nothing is going to change that.
Yeah.
Is that, because my son, George will turn 7. The Andrew's 2. He just, he's throwing things and all that kind of stuff. But like, I'm thinking specifically your oldest. Like, does that get more difficult? Or are you just as intentional with it? And I imagine there's dads listening who've got 16 or 18-year-olds.
Yeah. It is weird because like first of all, he's huge. Like he's like 5.
Is he gonna be taller than you?
I think he will. He's 5'6". Wears a size 10 shoe. He's 11, about to be 12 in about 6 weeks. But he's still my baby, I'm trying to think where I heard this or saw it somewhere, and I started to practice. I've done this a few times, and it's really interesting. And it talks about like hugging your sons, and it was like, next time you go hug your son for no reason, and just don't be the one that lets go, and just see what happens. And the first time I did it, he was like, "What are you doing?" But there's been moments where like I just have gone up to hug him, and like it's like a 30-second. It's very, and it's just, so I think you have to push yourself as they get a little older to still like grab their hand, give them a big hug. Words are super important to your point. I think that's, vital, but also try to make sure that, because that's again teaching them, like it's back to this stigma of like, oh, dudes don't do that or show love or whatever else. But I think it's gotta love on them.
Yeah. I think about this a lot, that there are a lot of grown men that you and I interact with in the world that are trying to prove something. And there's probably a lot of different reasons. But one of the key ones is because they never had the affirmation from their father.
Yeah.
I think we may have talked about this very early in the podcast, but in Jewish culture and heritage, there's the bar mitzvahs. And you and I are both have a Christian faith. We don't have that rite of passage.
Yeah.
I know you have some Jewish heritage in your family. Like, do you think there's a gap in that? Like, how do we do more? I've been to a bar mitzvah before. I thought it was so cool. It's just a fun party.
Yeah.
But then there is like this speaking of blessing over a child.
Yeah.
That's not only by a family, but by a community.
Yeah.
That's acknowledging that, specifically related in that context to a son. Are you thinking about that as Cam gets older?
Yeah. We didn't, you and I, as we normally do, didn't prep for this conversation. Yep. So this is real time. And it's interesting that you asked that question, because I was wrestling around with this exact thing as Cam's summer before middle school, and just how formative this time is in his life, and making sure he's going to be ready to rock for high school. And while that's 3 years away. So Brittany and I have been talking about it. And in fact, and this is not like, oh, Eric's idea. Like we have, a mutual friend that has done this. I've got a buddy in Marietta who is a part of something like this, these kind of like communal connections for kids at this time. And you teach them and you go through different things. I think Mark Batterson, he's written a book about, something similar with his boys, taking them through rituals to get them ready, almost like turning the page on adulthood, whatever that looks like. So we're going to set up like something. I've talked to 5 dads. We're going to do a monthly.
This is cool.
Yeah. So we'll end up probably getting to 10 kids. But the idea is there's 2 middle schools that feed the high school we go to. So we're trying to get kids that are, 5 and 5-ish from each of the schools. And we're going to do a monthly thing. We're going to get them together once a month at the house. We'll do maybe 15 to 20 minutes of a conversation, like a teaching, but let them react to it. And it's not going to be super structured, but we want them to go through a process of the next couple of years. We want them to be in community. We want them to learn about, to really build their faith, but just like understand that you can gather with a group of friends and not it just be about sports or whatever, right? It's about something bigger, just to build that muscle. And then our hope and prayer is that as they walk into Harrison High School, or they'll go to high school, assuming that's where we are at that time, they'll have a group that they can lean on and when things get tough. And so literally last week, we've been texting. We got some dads that are going to like really lock in and lead it, and then we'll, build that. But I think it's modeling what I want them to have that I didn't have at that age. Right. Yeah. And just, this is why we're talking right now. I think building that early is really important.
Yeah. So for me, recapping, I think through this conversation, I anticipated before we talked, there would be all of these different things for sons. I think a lot of it is not that different than daughters, but I do think leaning into there are certain things that we tend to not do or withhold from sons that we need to stay committed to. That physical touch, the words of affirmation. So I think that's a big one. And then I think there is something about how to be a man in this world. But I like this end of these rites of passage, these rituals that we create that are specific to boys and the kind of pressures they're going to face as they grow up.
The one ad I would say that we didn't really talk about, but I think we should, that I want to make sure that at least is said. I love my dad. I had a great childhood. This is not a slight on anybody. I did not grow up ever remembering my dad or mom say, "I'm sorry." And I think it's a generational societal thing, and it still probably is there. Some of the most impactful moments I think that I've just seen with my kids, especially my boys, and it's something that I probably need to do more with the girls, but it's just with the boys specifically, is I'm very quick to say I'm sorry when I raise my voice or there's a situation that has occurred. If I'm not present, like I want them to know. I'm trying to teach them humility and also to make sure they know, like, I'm not a superhero. Don't put me on a pedestal as like somebody that's got it all figured out. And so I think for my boys specifically, I want them to know that. And so I think it's really important that we do that.
Okay. I don't want to take us away from this deep note right here but I have to say this because Laura will listen to this podcast. And if I don't acknowledge this, I have actually been really good with saying I'm sorry to the kids. I'm not as good at saying that to Laura sometimes. So Laura will hear me blow up.
Yeah.
I have this. I go and I apologize. Hey, I'm sorry to this. Then she'll ask me later, did I do it? But I don't want her to know.
No, it's not about our wives.
It's not about you. Hey, I apologize to them. We did that. I'm not going to.
So very similar.
I want to acknowledge that. But I think that is key. And in a not joking way, I think something I've got to get better at is they need to see me say I'm sorry to her.
Totally right.
Yeah. I have been better to them than I am to other people.
Yeah.
And I think they need to be able to see that.
That's a good word. I'm the same way.
So it's really good. I think, raising sons in today's world is a big responsibility.
Yeah.
And for the dads out there that are doing it and showing up, I think we want to just encourage you, and it's a challenge for us to keep being intentional.
Agree. But it's vital for the future, vital for future communities and the families that they're going to have. So keep at it. Good conversation.
Thanks for listening to Legacy Makers with Kevin Scott and Eric Blumenthal. Make sure you download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
This podcast is a production of BG Ad Group. All rights reserved.